What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over Batman Knightfall. And really, we have reached a point where we are going to wrap up our coverage over Batman Knightfall. Now, by this point in Knightfall, we're gonna see really Bruce Wayne leaving behind Wayne Manor for a special kind of mission. And we'll talk more about this mission as we dive into today's video. But we're also going to see John Paul Valley become the sole protector of Gotham City because Bruce Wayne is leaving. That means someone has to protect Gotham. Somebody has to be Batman. And right now it's John Paul Valley. Now, this is not the first time we've seen John Paul Valley as Batman. In the earlier parts of our coverage over Knightfall, we had different moments where we had seen John Paul being Batman. But now it's all his to use. He is the Batman of Gotham City. And so as we dive into the opening pages for today's video, we actually pick up with Batman, John Paul Valley, and also Tim Drake Robin beating down on some low-grade thugs. Now, here's the thing. We had established this in our last video that even though John Paul Valley was really happy about the idea of becoming Batman, we already saw early on our last video that he might not be ready to be Batman. And the reason why, because he's more aggressive than Bruce Wayne is. And so really, when it comes to Batman and Robin, they are able to beat down on the thugs. And really, the thugs were easily defeated. But John Paul Valley is not trying to stop. He's trying to go even farther to make sure these thugs do not try to come back and be some kind of thug again down the road in Gotham City. Now for Robin, he's kind of like, listen, I get the idea. You want to make sure these guys stay off the streets, but the way you're doing it is completely wrong. Like, you were beating down on that man to the point where I felt like you were going to kill him. Now for John Paul Valley, he ignores what Robin says and he walks away. But now we have to jump over to Bruce Wayne. And this begins the process of us seeing Bruce Wayne leaving Gotham City behind for a special mission. Now, by this point in Knightfall, Bruce Wayne had already lost to Bane. His back is broken thanks to Bane. And so this man is currently in a wheelchair. By this point, though, this is Bruce Wayne trying his best to build a relationship with his physical therapist, better known as Sandra Kinsolving. Because in our last couple videos, we had established the idea that maybe Bruce Wayne is going to leave behind the whole idea of being Batman to be with her. But if he does stay, he has to tell her that he is Batman because this man might have true feelings for her. Now, when he does call her office, her assistant tells Bruce, oh, Sandra is currently next door at your neighbor's house dealing with another patient. And that would be Jack Drake, the father to Tim Drake. You see, in an earlier story arc, Jack got severely injured. And so it was really questionable if he would be able to recover. But thankfully, Sandra came in and she's been trying her best to help the man to recover. But now because Bruce knows that he can find Sandra next door, you have Bruce say, you know what? Let me go over there to see Sandra, and also I can see Jack as well. Except when Bruce head over there, he does see a few guards outside. But these guards don't work for Jack. And on top of that, these guys actually, are very armed. And so for Bruce, he believes that this must be another attack being done by Bane. That Bane might have been able to figure out that Robin was Tim Drake. And really, speaking of Bane, we see him right now talking to his gang about the idea of trying to take over the different rackets in Gotham City. So like drugs, smuggling, gambling, extortion, car thief, bank, burglary, and the rackets go on and on and on. This is Bane saying sooner or later Gotham is going to be mine. Gotham is technically already mine, but I gotta make sure I have complete control over the entire city. But getting back over to John Paul Valley and Robin, we see our two heroes heading over to a location that's being used as a meeting spot for all the top crime bosses in Gotham City. Now, for Tim Drake, all those crime bosses are no longer the top crime bosses. And the reason why, because Bane has now complete control over Gotham City. And for John Paul Valley, he already knew that. He said, listen, I could possibly use these guys as a way to get over to Bane and take Bane down. Let's not forget though, Bruce told John Paul Valley, leave Bane alone. Once I'm able to recover, I'll take Bane on myself. But this is John Paul Valley saying, no, I'm Batman now, and I'll do things my way, which means if I want to go after Bane, I'll go after Bane to get my job done. And so now his goal is to use the crime bosses to get to Bane. But getting back over to Bruce, we see Bruce trying his best to hopefully save Sandra and Jack from being kidnapped by these armed guys. But the problem is, Bruce really can't take all these guys down because technically he's still handicapped. Now he does try his best to take out one of the guards, but honestly he's not at full strength. And so even though he was able to take down one guard, he kind of realized that this kind of mission is most likely not going to be easy. And really, he might not be successful at all either. But now I want to shift our focus back over to that meeting spot where we actually pick up with Tony. Tony was originally the top crime boss in Gotham City until he had a meeting with Bane. And Bane said, hey, I'm now in charge of all of Gotham, but I'm gonna need you to work for me to get the other crime bosses to fall in line. Now, if you don't do that, I'm telling you right now, I will, do some bad things to your children. And so Tony, unfortunately, has to basically get the other crime bosses to fall in line to save the lives of his children. And so that is why you have all these crime bosses here for this meeting. It's him trying his best to convince them to fall in line to work for Bane. But then in the middle of the meeting, you have Batman and Robin jump in. Really just Batman at first. Now, I want to jump back over to Bruce for a brief moment. And the reason why, because I want to show you guys that he does fail when it comes to trying to save Jack and Sandra from being kidnapped by these guys. Now, you have Bruce trying his best, but these guys are at full strength. These guys are not handicapped. And honestly, Bruce is by himself. There are at least like 3 or 4 guys. And so they were able to take down Bruce, grab Sandra, grab Jack, and get the heck out of there. And so, yes, Bruce did fail when it came to this particular mission. But getting back over to Batman and Robin, we see our two heroes being able to take down all the guys at the meeting, which honestly, that is great. But then you have Batman chase after Tony, the guy who was working for Bane already. And so you have Batman realize that if he wants to get to Bane, most likely he has to use Tony as a way to get to Bane. And so you have John Paul ask Tony, what does Bane have on you that he's making you work for him? And you have Tony say, he has my children. If I don't help him, he is going to kill my kids. And so because of that, you then have Batman realize that he can use Tony as a way to get to Bane. But now we jump into Batman number 499, where we actually pick up with Batman, John Paul Valley, beating down on Tony. Now, this is John Paul Valley saying, hey, listen, I want to make sure that you are going to work with me here when it comes to, getting close to Bane. Now for Robin, he hates the idea to see Batman beating down on somebody because Bruce Wayne didn't do that. Bruce Wayne scared the living crap out of you to make you work alongside with him. But to beat down on you, that's not Bruce Wayne at all. But this is not Bruce Wayne. This is John Paul Valley. And he is saying, I'm going to do things my way. If you don't like it, then step off. Go somewhere else. But just know that Bruce chose me to be Batman. And so now it's time for me to handle things my way. And so you do have Tony agree to help Batman get close to Bane. But getting back over to Bruce Wayne, we do pick up with Bruce not giving up on his mission to save Sandra and Jack after being kidnapped. Now, he was able to grab one of the masks of the guys he fought against earlier. On that mask, he's able to get a blood sample. Now, with that blood sample, he does learn that that guy recently got a vaccine to help fight against malaria. And that's the first clue that Bruce can use to hopefully figure out where those guys went to with Sandra and Jack. But getting back over to Bane, you have Bane get word that apparently Batman is back out there in Gotham City. Now, Bane knows there's no way it's actually Bruce Wayne being Batman, because this guy had just broke Bruce back earlier in Nightfall, and he now knows it has to be John Paul Valley. And let's not forget, when it came to Nightfall earlier on, we saw Bane go up against John Paul Valley when he was wearing the Batman mask one time. And so Bane knows about John Paul, and he calls John Paul the Pretender. And so for Bane, he says there's no way that Batman is out there. Now, he does get a call that Tony was able to get all the other crime bosses in Gotham City to fall in line. And so he was hoping to get his kids back. Now for Bane, he kind of realized that this could be a trap. And so he tells his gang, you guys are going to go your way to return the kids to Tony. But just in case, I was you, I'll be prepared because Batman might be there as well. This could be a trap that was made for me, but I won't be there. You guys will be there. But now we pick up the moment where we're going to see Bruce Wayne leaving Gotham City, because when we jump back over to the Batcave, you have Bruce Wayne call up Oracle, where she was able to tell him all like, hey, listen, this kind of vaccine came from this particular country, better known as Santa Prisca. Now for Batman, he knows about that country because of the drug Venom. And so for Batman, he realized he has to go there if he wants to be able to save Jack and also Sandra. Except right after he decided that he was going to leave, John Paul Valley had returned back to the cave. And you have Bruce say, hey, everything is yours. Like, I'm leaving on a special mission. I can't tell you where I'm going, but listen, I'll be back in a few days, weeks, months, who knows, but I'm gone. But everything is now yours for the time being. And so just like that, Bruce Wayne is now gone. That now John Paul Valley is technically Batman for Gotham City. He is the sole protector of Gotham. Everything in Wayne Manor, the Batcave, belongs to him until Bruce comes back. Now, something else I do want to mention is that when it comes to John Paul Valley, he used to belong to the Order of St. Dumas. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into the Order of St. Dumas, but I do want to say that when it came to the Order, they made sure to turn John Paul Valley into their own personal assassin, their own avenging angel, better known as Azrael. Now, really, his father was the previous Azrael, and his dad made sure that his son would be ready for the role when the time came. You see, when it came to John Paul Valley, when he was young, his father had put things in his mind to kind of help Azrael get ready when the time came for him to take up the role. Something called the system. With the system, it would make sure that John Paul Valley knew everything about the Order, but also knew how to fight like a true avenging angel. So when the Order needs him, he would be ready. The problem is sometimes that system will take over his mind and body. And so while you have John Paul in the cave, the system comes on and he begins to sketch up new gauntlets that he wants to wear when he's out there being Batman. And so when he is able to regain control of his mind and body, he realized the system must have taken over and said, hey man, listen, use these sketches right here in your next battle when you're out there as Batman. And even though this is John Paul Valley want to move away from the system, he kind of agrees with the system that these kind of gauntlets could be very handy. Now you have Robin also return back to the Batcave. When he does run into, well, of course, John Paul Valley. And he sees that John Paul wearing some new gauntlets that he's going to use out in battle now. And of course, we already know that for John Paul, his main goal is to go after Bane. Bane's the top guy right now. If you want to make sure that Gotham is protected, then you have to go after the top guy. You start from the top and you work your way down to John Paul Valley's idea. And so you have Robin say, no, Bruce told us to leave him alone. But again, you have John Paul say, no, I'm now in charge. Bruce is gone. It's up to me. I'm Batman. He chose me to be Batman. Not you, not anybody else but me. And you have John Paul leave to go find Bane now. And so now we jump over to the trade deal where you have Tony meeting up with Bane's gang to get his kids back because he told them like, hey, I was able to get the rest of the crime bosses to fall in line and work for Bane. Except we already knew it was a trap by Batman to hopefully get Bane. But instead, he'll get the top 3 guys who work underneath Bane. Now, this is Batman being very dangerous. And the reason why, because he didn't make sure the kids were in a safe spot before trying to fight against Bane's crew. Now, luckily for Batman, Robin came in and he was able to help the kids get to safety while Batman fights against the 3 members who work for Bane's crew. Now, once you have Batman being able to take them down, you have Robin once again saying, that was dangerous. You didn't make sure the kids were actually safe. But you have John Paul say, oh no, I knew you were coming. I saw you. I knew that if I couldn't save them, at least you would. And so for Robin, that's still not okay because that was just pure luck. It was not planned out. They were not 100% sure that Robin could save the kids. But for John Paul, everything's good and he leaves. Now, when you have the 2 guys being able to get back to the Batcave, that is when you have John Paul tell Tim Drake that Bruce and Alfred are gone. They went on some kind of special trip. I have no idea what kind of trip, but hey, he told me that I'm allowed to move in. And so now the Batcave is mine, just letting you know. Now for Robin, he's wondering where in the world did Bruce and Alfred go to? Now, the very last page of this chapter alone, we get 2 different things happening on the same page. First, we do learn that Selina Kyle was able to sneak onto the private jet of Bruce Wayne and Alfred because she was also trying to head over to Santa Prisca, but the problem was there was no other flights heading that way. But she got word that a private jet that belonged to Bruce Wayne was heading that way. And so she was able to get on his jet. And the last thing we see in this chapter alone is that there was a note left behind to tell Tim that Bruce and Alfred had left for a special kind of trip, a special kind of mission to kind of get Jack and Sandra back. And so as we dive into Detective Comics issue number 666, we now pick up with Batman, John Paul Valley, meeting up with Jim Gordon. Now, this is not the first time these 2 characters are meeting one another, but it is the first time where it's them meeting and now John Paul is officially going to be Batman until Bruce Wayne comes back. And so these 2 guys are going to have to work together when it comes to protecting Gotham. And so for John Paul, he wants to know if the GCPD were able to get any kind of information out of the 3 guys who used to work for Bane's crew to hopefully figure out where Bane is at. But you have Jim tell Batman like, nah, man, listen, like, those guys are very loyal. They're not going to tell us anything at all when it comes to Bane and where he's hiding out at. Now, for John Paul, he feels like he has another way to figure out how to find Bane. And really, we get a good look at Zombie, Trog, and also Bird, really showing how loyal they are to Bane because you have Harvey Bullock just trying his best to get some piece of information that can tell them where is Bane hiding out at. But those guys are very loyal to Bane, but at the same time, they're kind of scared of Bane because if they had went out of their way to tell some kind of information about where Bane is at, most likely Bane would have killed them. And so they're scared of him, but at the same time, very loyal to him. But then out of nowhere, somebody begins the process of helping these guys get out of the prison they're locked up in. Now, there is a note with the package to help them escape. And with that note, at the very end, it was signed by somebody with initial B. Now, for them, they believe, okay, the initial B must be for Bane. He's out there right now trying to help us escape from the prison, which they're actually able to do. But in reality, that note did not come from Bane. That note came from Batman. The initial B was for him. And so when you have all three of them being able to get out of the prison, they're now heading back over to Bane. But they have no idea they're being watched by Batman. He's all like, yes, lead me back to your boss so I am able to finally take him down. But now we have to jump over to Tim Drake. Now, this is Tim really feeling like he's on his own now because Bruce is gone. Alfred is gone. John Paul Valley wants nothing to do with him at all. And then on top of that, Dick Grayson is not around either. Because around this time in DC Comics, Bruce and Dick were not really talking to one another. Dick was doing his own thing out there being Nightwing. And so for Tim, he's kind of like, this sucks. It's just me here. And on top of that, right now we got John Paul Valley being a crazy Batman out there about to make things a whole lot worse for Gotham. But now I want to jump back over to Bane's crew, because you have Bane's crew arrive back at Bane's place. And when they do, they're like, hey boss, thanks for breaking us out of prison. Like, thanks to you, man, we got a free life again. Thanks, boss. And you have Bane say, I didn't break you guys out of prison. What are you talking about? And they're like, no, boss, you did. Matter of fact, the stuff you gave us came with a note with your initial on there saying B, like B for Bane. And you have Bane say, you guys are idiots. Idiots. That was not me. That was Batman. And bam, just like that, you have John Paul Batman just come through the window and begin to fight against Bane and his crew. Now, his crew are easily defeated, but now it comes down to him and Bane. Now, for John Paul Valley, he truly does believe that he should be able to take down Bane because he's now going up against a Batman who's not physically and mentally drained. Because remember, when it came to Bruce Wayne fighting against Bane earlier in Nightfall, well, Bruce was physically and mentally drained because we saw in the earlier parts of Nightfall, Bruce was unable to get a proper night of rest. That man was physically and mentally drained. And when Nightfall truly kicked off, he used the last amount of energy he had in those battles against the other members of his rogue gallery. And so when it came to Bruce fighting against Bane, he had no energy left, making him an easy target for Bane to take out. But John Paul's saying, no, it's completely different. I'm not going to be an easy target for you because I'm not physically and mentally drained. And at first, it really does seem like maybe John Paul is right, that he might be able to take Bane down. But the problem is Bane is still just too strong for John Paul. Bane knows how to fight. And so at the end of this issue, it does look like that John Paul might fall to his death as soon as Bane is able to cut the rope that's holding John Paul up in the air. But now it's time for us to dive into the final chapter of Nightfall, Batman number 500. Now, this was the book that basically said, hey, Bruce is gone. John Paul Valley is going to be Batman. Matter of fact, this is the book where we see John Paul Valley give us his own version of the bat suit. Now, with all that being said, though, it does pick up the last chapter left off at, where you do have Batman still fighting against Bane. Really, it's Batman right now hanging for his life. Now, he's able to get down safe enough to actually survive the fall. But Bane knows that he's not really up to battling against Batman. And so you have Bane dip the heck out of there. Now, for Batman, John Paul, he does try his best to follow Bane, but Bane is able to get away. And so for John Paul, he knows that this is not over, that once Bane is able to recover, sooner or later, he'll try to come after Batman. And really, it's John Paul saying, I hope he does, because we need a final battle between each other so I can get rid of him once and for all. Now, getting back over to Tim Drake, we do get a page where we do see him calling up Ariana. Now, Ariana was a close girlfriend in the early days of Robin comics. And really, it's him calling her saying like, hey, I miss you, but unfortunately, I can't see you. Because this is Robin saying like, hey, Gotham needs my protection. I don't know if I can really trust Azrael being Batman right now. And so even though he was the one who called up this girl to be all like, hey, I miss you, I still can't see you at the moment. And he hangs the call up. But now we have to jump over to the GCPD, where we pick up with Lieutenant Kitch and Harvey Bullock. Now, when it comes to Kitch, we kind of learn early on that this is a guy who wants to follow the book when it comes to being a cop. He hates the idea of trying to break away from the book, especially the idea of working with a vigilante like Batman. But when it comes to Kitch, he does arrive at the scene where Batman had fought against Bane, where of course the 3 members who worked for Bane are still there and they're now being arrested and about to head back to prison. Now for Kitch, he is told by Bullock that Bullock feels like there's going to be one big battle coming down the road between Batman and Bane, round 2, or really round 3, I guess. But really, it's Bullock saying that that next round might be very bloody because it's Batman and Bane coming out with everything they got. He just knows it's coming. Now, you also have Bullock telling Kitch, hey, the mayor wants to talk to you. And the reason why, because the mayor is currently not talking to Gordon for other reasons we saw early on in Nightfall. And so he wants to talk to you. And you have Kitch head there automatically. Now, we do get a few more pages where we do see Robin once again trying to tell John Paul Valley like, hey, what you are doing is completely wrong. The whole idea of you being Batman goes completely against what Bruce Wayne had built with the idea of Batman. Like, you are just as brutal as Bane is. You're just as dark as Bane is. Like, that's crazy and wild. Why are you doing that? But it's John Paul saying he has no choice. If he wants to be able to take down Bane, he has to get on Bane's level. He has to get dark as Bane, just as brutal as Bane, to make sure that Bane does not come back once he's able to beat Bane down. And so you have John Paul once again tell Robin like, hey, just leave me alone and let me do me. Like, let me do Batman in my own kind of way. Now, I want to jump over to the mayor just real briefly. And the reason why, because you have the mayor telling Kitch like, hey, listen, the reason why I called you here is to tell you that even though I like the idea of you following the book when it comes to being a police officer, I kind of also love the idea of what Batman is doing as a vigilante, because early on in Nightfall, the Joker and Scarecrow had kidnapped the mayor. It was Batman who saved the mayor from one of the worst nights of his life, probably the worst night of his life. But either way, he was saved by Batman, and he understands why Gotham needs Batman around. And so even though he loves the idea of Kitch following the book, he's telling Kitch, if you see Batman right now fighting against one of his rogue gallery, let him take care of it. Let him do what he needs to do. Because honestly, I feel like we're not prepared to take down those kinds of criminals. But now we have to jump over to Jim Gordon. And the reason why, because this is Jim kind of realizing that something has changed with Batman. Now, he has no idea that Bruce Wayne Batman is gone. That right now is John Paul Batman out there. But at the same time, he kind of realized that things are going to be different in Gotham. But also because usually when Bruce being Batman, he does work very well with Jim. They were able to build a bond with one another. But when it comes to John Paul, it does seem like he's not really trying to build that bond with Jim. And so John Paul is not telling Jim what he has plans when it comes to bringing down Bane. And so unfortunately, Jim can only just wait to see what Batman, John Paul Batman, is going to do. But now you have Bane pay a visit over to the three guys who used to work for him in prison. Now, this is Bane saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to break you guys out of here at all. And the reason why? Because you guys got caught, but also because you guys failed me. But on top of that, you guys still owe me. So you're going to tell me where I can find a location of where we kept the extra venom at. And of course, they do tell him, but this really shows that this is a Bane that kind of realized that he needs more venom if he's going to be able to bring down his new bat, to bring down John Paul Valley Batman. But now we pick up with Nightwing arriving at Wayne Manor to talk to Robin. Now, Dick Grayson, he never met John Paul Valley. So to hear the idea that there is a new Batman out there, it's not him, that is somebody else, he's kind of like, what the heck? Why didn't Bruce come to me to ask me to become the next Batman? But you had Tim tell Dick like, hey, I heard that you two were not talking to one another, but also you were your own man, he said. He said you finally got out of his shadows, that you were out there in the world trying to do your own thing. And so with that right there, he believed that you would not even accept the idea of being Batman. And so he chose John Paul Valley. Now, this is also Tim trying to tell Dick, like, I don't know if John Paul can really be Batman, that maybe Bruce made the wrong choice. But as Dick's saying, if Bruce made the choice, then Bruce may have known that maybe it was the best choice for Gotham to have John Paul out there as the next Batman. Now, it's also Tim believing that he's at fault for what happened in John Paul Valley. The idea that John Paul became Batman, but honestly not seeing the signs that John Paul was not ready to become Batman. But again, you have Dick saying it's not your fault. Like, if Bruce decided that he will become the next Batman, then Bruce chose him. Bruce has to live with that decision, but we have to move on with our lives. And they leave. And we do see another page where we do see Bane being able to find the hidden stash of venom. And now with that stash, Homeboy is ready, or he believes he's ready for the next battle between him and Batman, John Paul Batman. But right after he was able to receive that venom, he goes over to a building where he takes out a guy that controls a electric billboard to leave a message for Batman to find and say, hey, I am ready for you. It's time for you and I to have our final battle. But getting back over to Tim, Tim goes down to Batcave to see if John Paul is still there. John Paul is not there, but he does find John Paul's sketches, and he realized that John Paul has created a brand new Batman suit, and that Batman suit is going to be used in the final battle between him and Bane. Now, the second story of this book is really more of the final battle between Bane and Batman. And so you have Bane being able to get that message out to Batman saying, hey, you know what? If you want me, come get me. I'll be here at this location. And bam, you have John Paul see that message. And next thing you know, it leads into a battle between the two characters. Now, while you have the two characters fighting against each other, the GCPD arrive. But they're just watching because the mayor says like, hey, you know what? I love the idea of having Batman in Gotham. The idea of having a vigilante that is able to work away from the book, to be able to take down the different characters that come to Gotham terrorizing the citizens. And so for the GCPD, they're basically told, if Batman fails, that is when you step in. But if Batman's there, you don't step in. You let the man work. And so right now, John Paul is going up against Bane with his brand new Batman suit. And the battle's great. I mean, it's a beautiful battle. John Paul is giving Bane one heck of a beatdown. But at the same time, it's Bane saying, I have to get out of there. I have to leave because I am not ready for this Batman. Like, I got overconfident because I took out a Batman earlier that was physically and mentally drained. But now I'm being confronted by a new Batman who's not physically or mentally drained. A Batman who has all these new gadgets, his new armor suit to battle against me. Like, this man is properly ready to take me down. I have to leave. But for Batman, this man can't leave. This man has to be defeated right here and right now. And so you have John Paul follow Bane. The battle continues on. And then it all comes down to the final moments where everyone kind of wondering, will Batman beat down Bane to the point where he basically dies? Except you have Robin there as well too, kind of wondering the same thing, like, okay, you defeated him, let him go, and let the GCPD take him away. And so for a good moment there, it does seem like maybe John Paul might continue to beat down on Bane, who's already broken. He says, no, I'm not going to do that. You know what? I'm going to let the GCPD go ahead and take him away. And you have Bane walk away. Now, as he walks away, you have Robin there saying, you know what? Maybe you have earned the right to become Batman. Maybe you are the right choice for Gotham City. And the book ends on that note. Nightfall ends on that note right there, where we're left to wonder what is going to happen in Gotham City now with the idea of John Paul Valley being Batman. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.